Hey YouTube, Kamen Rider here. Welcome to another double Gavv review, episodes 24 and 25 that pair pretty well together. Honestly, I'm still just loving this show. I can't believe, honestly, how good it is, and I'm going to talk a little bit about that in terms of just, I can't believe how well it works with the very strange gimmick and aesthetic we have. But we pick up where we left off. Gavv and Gavv were in a fight chase, and then Sachika saves him after he loses out, and he's, I guess, still tired. I guess Shoma's still tired, and that's a reoccurring thing. It's explained in one of the last episodes, and I forgot to call it out specifically, but his uncle had said, like, you were backed up, like you were constipated, but it seems to be something constipated with gachiza, you know what I mean? It seems to be something more. I'm really curious what's going on here. I like that it at least isn't tied to a form. Like, he gets the form after this, so it's not one of those, oh, the form makes me evil or tired. Curious what's going on with him, because he's all the way, he's tired throughout both of these episodes. He kind of almost sleeps throughout all of episode 24. So I don't know, I'm really interested in that, but I do like that this lets Sachika shine, you know, helping take care of him. She also puts two and two together that Hanto is Valen, which I really like. She also tries to fight the monster with like a spatula or something. Like, I don't know, I just really like Sachika, and I actually do hope she becomes a writer. I know there was rumors or like hopes that she was going to become Vlam, but I hope she becomes a writer either by the end of the series or in a post-series story. Like, I don't know, I think it would just fit, and I just really like her character. You also have Hanto wrapping up his storyline where his friend betrayed him and set him up, which I guess he was lied to because the guy's like, well, he wrote a bad article about me, but it's actually a granite that had his friend killed and he was getting revenge for him. And this kind of is like Hanto's dark turn because he gets like sticky down and like none of his gachizo can get it up, for lack of a better word, except for this new dark chocolate one, which gives him his new dark chocolate form, and we start to take this darker turn with him, and he does call Sachika and like let Shoma know about this, but he doesn't want to see him. I think it's interesting that it's kind of the revelations about how Shoma was involved with the backstory of his mother that have him keeping his distance. I think probably, I don't think he's mad at Shoma, I think he just kind of has mixed feelings, and I think it just reminds him of everything all over again. But I think it's interesting that it's that has him separated from him and not finding out that he was a granite. I do like that overall, though, this has made that storyline that was linked have a little bit more kind of fallout to it. And they're also on these kind of separate paths right now, which I'll get into in a couple minutes, but I thought that was kind of interesting. You also have a really cool scene where you have Vlam going back to kill Shoma's uncle, but then he gives a speech to convince him out of it. But I liked it because it was great for his character in two ways. It made so much sense based off of the way he's previously behaved that he wouldn't be okay with it and go back for that. But then when he hears his speech about basically feeling like he was starting to make good on it, he had a very balanced reaction. That's one of my favorite things about this show, was that everyone actually behaves like a rational human being. More so than not only most toku, but most people nowadays, if we're being honest, especially looking at the comment section of videos, you know. Insane to see a character that level-headed, and I really liked that a lot. At the end of the episode, you have him fighting Bitter Gavv again. They're saving some budget by having Bitter Gavv just be the villain at the end of all these episodes. You don't need a Monster of the Week. No, there's some people that don't really like the Bitter Gavv twist. I kind of like it. Like, I kind of see it in a way as a twist on the idea of a Berserk form. I get a feeling it might be Suga in there eventually, that he's just using this as a trial run. There's also a scene where, like, Valen's visiting him, and he's like, what's with all the pizzas? He was like, oh, my nephew, or whatever. There was a kid here. Like, that sounds weird. I know that's already suspicious when you said that. But, I mean, clearly that was Bitter Gavv eating it, so I don't know. Maybe he'll remember that later. I got distracted for a second. He's fighting Bitter Gavv, and he's still tired, and Sachika gives him ice cream, which creates the new ice cream form. And, again, they tie it back to his mother, like, his mother told him about ice cream. I feel it's a little bit repetitive with, like, the potato chip thing, but I still like the way the show can make something as silly as this, like, this could be a Toku parody series. Somebody eating ice cream and then creating an ice cream cone form from it. Feels like a parody series, and it still doesn't feel like it's super serious, but it just feels quirky. It feels in line with that Toku quirk, and they just make it work so well. Like, I can't believe how well this show can make the mythology work, where it is silly, but it just adds to sort of like the endearing aspect of the series, but I'm still able to take the story seriously and actually be invested in it, and the mythology makes sense in a weird way. I'm interested how the powers work, because in a way it feels like kind of like my power comes from within or whatever, like literally, that all his power-ups just literally come from him, like there's no outside stuff like that. But at the same time, I have mixed feelings where it just seems like when he has a super strong connection to something like the cake episode or this one, it creates an even stronger gachizo. I do like that in a way, like it's one of the more rational versions of like the powers come from my feelings, and it makes sense for the way he works because all the powers do come from him and the way his Gavv works. So it does make sense that, like, him having a stronger reaction to, like, oh, Sachika's helping me and this has an emotional memory, or, you know, the cake episode also had an emotional beat to it, that it would create a stronger power. But I'm hoping for, like, the mid-series form and maybe the final, there's a little bit of something from the outside, and it's not always just he makes it with a stronger and stronger emotion. Like, maybe either have him need to get some sort of mod for one of these next power-ups, or like a Kuga situation where he's, like, near death, and then when he's revived, it creates a new evolution of it. But I don't know. Mixed feelings about it, but it's still cool. And the form itself, cool, pun intended. Accidentally, but intended. The form is great. Maybe my favorite Gavv suit. It looks really awesome. Like, again, it's almost a physical representation of what I just talked about, where this is silly. This is an ice cream superhero character, and it looks badass, and the fight was badass with the way he creates, like, ice rinks. It does look funny when he first sticks it in, because it evokes a certain imagery, but when it opens up, it's actually really cool the way it creates, like, a pinwheel thing he can use. Episode 25, then, takes a little bit more time for Valen, as he's like, I have to learn more about ice cream. Valen, come with me, and they start tasting ice cream, and they eat ice cream cake, which made me think, you know what would be a cool Slide Evolution hybrid form? Would be somehow to mash together caking and the ice cream form just because of the ice cream cake. That would be fun. That's a weird conversation to have. But anyway, just in terms of like when you're speculating on forms, I never thought I'd be speculating on how to create a form and I'd be like, well, you do these two forms together because of ice cream cake. I guess we find out granites basically don't have a taste for human food. You know, obviously Shoma's different because he's half human because he doesn't like it and he decides to eat a rock instead. But this episode is about, or at least main part of it, is about getting Valen like in the fold and also learning more about humans, which I really like. As much as I'm still disappointed we didn't have him as kind of a rogue element for a while, I really like him working with the cast. Like he starts working with Sachika and learning a little bit more about empathy and humans, and it's just kind of a fun dynamic. And it's really funny how much this show and its characters remind me of Build, and yet it's not like Build at all. But the dynamic between Hanto and Shoma is so much like Ryuga and Sento. And even Valen's character feels very much like Grease in a way, because much like Grease, he wasn't really evil, he just had his own very personal motivations. Like Grease was even more so not like a villain because he was just fighting for his country or whatever. And he also reminds me a bit of Rogue, because you now have this villain, or this character that was introduced as kind of a villain, doing more goofy stuff like Rogue did later in the series. So it's interesting, like, I find so many parallels to the way Build made me feel and similarities to the dynamics, but yet it's not feeling like it's derivative of it, if that makes any sense. And I just love the cast overall, especially after last year. Like, what a breath of fresh air that the core four characters I all honestly really like, and I'm not even sure who's my favorite, to be honest. There's a core plot that's drawn attention to where basically a YouTuber's identity is stolen by a granite to eat people. It's really funny though, the reveal. I thought he was like, I don't know, at a remote location in a back room with a microphone. He was just behind the TV. He just stands up. But Valen is on that case and he actually protects a person. So I think we're starting to lean into the, you know, Valen protects people type of arc and learns to like humans type of stuff. And then you only have Hanto very briefly in this, you know, thanking Suga for the power-up. He does have a really cool fight scene with Dark Gavv. Kind of like a hallway fight scene, but it's more like an alleyway scene, but really creative. And he does a cool henshin where he like smacks the wall after he throws chocolate on it. Again, only a conversation you can have in Gavv. During the fight, again, Shoma's still tired, and then the ice cream melts away. It seems like, unlike the caking one, which is like a permanent one, this one will literally melt away, which makes sense, but that was interesting. Something I wanted to bring up about the power-ups was, this is one of the only times, I think one of only 2 times where we had power-ups or suits or whatever debut very close to each other. And it doesn't feel smashed together at all. Like in Revice, there was a couple times they did that. I think most notably, I think it was Thundering Gale, and I don't remember the name of Evil Lives power-up. But they got those back-to-back, and it technically tied together, like the plots flowed together, but it very much felt like they were smushed together because we have to have the toys out. But this doesn't feel like that at all. And I also kind of like the parallel of these forms with the journey the characters are on in a way, in terms of Valen going darker. This is obviously like his black suit Spider-Man thingy. And then the caking form, then the ice cream form, it was kind of representative of like Shoma realizing like he's got good people around him and friends in Sachika especially, but also now Valen. So I like how that kind of tied together and it didn't feel rushed. And overall, even if they do have forms or writers debuting back-to-back in this, they've built up enough goodwill where they've paced this excellently. Something else interesting that's going on is all the writers have some sort of ailment. Like I mentioned a couple times, Shoma's been sick. We also had that brief thing where Vlam's pudding form, or his other strawberry pudding shortcake form, gives him like a heart thingy. And then Valen's obviously having side effects from whatever he's doing. So that's really interesting. I'll be curious if there's any sort of connection to those. Probably not Shoma's, but it's just interesting that all 3 of our main writers have some sort of ailment going on. Yeah, overall, another 2 set of great episodes. I feel like a broken record because I very rarely have negative things to say, just kind of mixed things about like, oh, how the mythology of the powers work with like him getting power-ups, but that's about it. Like, it has great momentum and pacing, and I just can't wait to see what happens next. But let me know what you thought of the episode as always. Until next time, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell to get notifications for more videos like this and more. Dawson Rider, signing out.